Welcome to What Was Anwar. Today, we're talking about Akmal's strong reaction to the school alcohol policy dispute. And this isn't just some minor disagreement, is it? It feels like a real high-stakes political clash.
Oh, absolutely. It's the cabinet's collective decision up against, well, a very firm, very public statement made earlier by the Prime Minister himself, Anwar Ibrahim.
So a definite tug-of-war playing out. You've got maybe moral principle on one side and political pragmatism on the other.
Precisely. And the core of the issue, it really boils down to how the unity government handles the use of school halls, specifically halls in Chinese vernacular schools, the SJKCs.
Okay, the SJKCs. Why them in particular?
Well, these schools often have quite unique ties with their local communities, and the whole policy tension flared up because some traditional community events, like certain fundraising dinners, have, historically anyway, sometimes involved serving alcohol on school grounds in those halls.
Right, and this became a huge political headache because the cabinet ultimately decided to stick with the existing guidelines, yeah.
Exactly. They essentially decided not to impose a new total ban on serving alcohol at these external functions held in those specific school halls.
Which Akmal, the United Malays National Organization youth chief, immediately saw as, what, a U-turn?
That's how he framed it. He
Yeah.
came out very strongly against the decision, seeing it as a direct reversal. To really get why Akmal reacted so strongly, you need to look at the timeline.
Okay.
His criticism stems directly from the fact that this cabinet decision seems to, well, contradict the nation's highest office. Just before this, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim had stated very clearly in Parliament,
Yeah, I remember that.
unequivocally, that government schools were absolutely forbidden from hosting any event involving alcohol. It was meant to be a clear line.
A line in the sand, sort of. But then politics happened.
You could say that. Following the PM's statement, we understand several Chinese ministers within the cabinet voiced pretty significant concerns during their meeting.
Concerns about what specifically?
That a total ban would seriously disrupt important community functions, especially the fundraising activities these schools rely heavily on. And that's where, the specific context of these Chinese vernacular schools really matters. They often depend a lot on community support, community funding.
Right.
And these halls, they're seen not just as school property, but almost as community assets. Big fundraising dinners, banquets are pretty common to finance school needs. And yes, traditionally, some of these events might include alcohol.
So the cabinet effectively listened to those concerns.
It seems so. They sided with keeping the current rules for external events and donations, which in practice created a kind of exception for these SJKC halls compared to the PM's initial blanket statement.
So the argument against a strict ban was that it might hurt the schools financially and disrupt cultural practices.
That appears to be the underlying rationale for the accommodation, yes. Protecting those community structures vital for the schools.
But Akmal wasn't buying that nuance at all.
Not one bit. He saw a broken promise, a dangerous precedent. He went public demanding the government explain why this cabinet decision seemed to contradict the Prime Minister's own, earlier, much firmer stance.
So it moved beyond just alcohol policy, didn't it?
Mhm.
It became a challenge to the government's consistency.
And its internal authority, really. How can the PM say one thing and the cabinet appear to do another? That was Akmal's core question.
And then he shifted gears, moving towards a more moral argument.
Exactly. He pivoted from that procedural critique to expressing, well, outright shock and dismay.
What was his line? Something about educational places.
Yes. He said he was shocked that places designated as educational places were now being allowed, essentially by policy, to become what he called drinking places. He framed it as corrosive to national values.
And he tried to link this directly to broader public worries, right? Like drunk driving.
He did. He argued that the Malaysian public has been expecting strong government action on serious issues like, yes, the tragic problem of drunk driving incidents, which remains a major concern.
So he's saying the public wanted tougher measures, maybe including education about alcohol hazards in schools.
Yes, and part of that, in his view, should have been a complete ban on alcohol in any school environment to begin with. He felt the government was softening its stance when it should have been getting tougher.
Politically, that's quite a strong position to take. Insisting the PM's original stricter line must hold, no exceptions.
It is. It aligns him with those segments of the population calling for stricter moral standards and uniform application of rules, especially around safety and education. For Akmal, the principle of an alcohol-free school zone seems absolute.
So cultural practices, fundraising needs, None of that matters as much as the principle.
That's the core of his argument. The principle should outweigh those other considerations. The perceived danger or the symbolic issue outweighs the practicalities of donations or traditions.
Which led him to challenge the cabinet directly on this.
A very pointed challenge. He demanded they explain in detail if they genuinely believe alcohol offers any benefits, health, social, whatever, to the people.
That really puts them on the spot, doesn't it?
Yes.
Forcing them to defend the decision on moral ground.
It's a powerful rhetorical tactic, yes. It shifts the debate away from just pragmatic accommodation towards fundamental values.
And then came the warning, the political warning.
Yes, this is where you see the pressure really being applied within the unity government's dynamics. He warned them against making, quote, the wrong decision.
And the implication was fear of losing votes.
He directly suggested that. He argued that backing down from the PM's original stance out of fear of losing votes from certain communities would, in the long run, harm the nation's future generation.
That's heavy stuff, tying a policy decision to the fate of the next generation.
It certainly raises the stakes. But he didn't stop there. He added that rather pointed unnamed jab.
Ah, yes, the reference to a drunk minister. That caused a stir.
It did. Calling on the government not to cultivate a new generation that might resemble that drunk minister. It was clearly designed to tap into public anxieties about political figures and their conduct.
Even without naming names, it connects this specific policy fight to broader concerns about leadership integrity, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a very sharp political move. It elevates the debate from hall usage rules to, a question of perceived political morality. It leverages public unease very effectively.
So to sum up Akmal's stance, it's zero tolerance. Keep education and alcohol completely separate.
Uncompromisingly so. His final point was essentially, if people want to drink, fine, but go somewhere else, not in places associated with children and education. A clear demand for separation, both physical and moral.
So we're left with this really difficult balancing act for the government.
Extremely difficult. On one hand, you have this need for cultural accommodation, respecting how these SJKCs function and fundraise within their communities, real, practical needs.
And on the other,
a strong demand for uniform moral standards, public health principles, consistency with the PM's initial declaration, all applied across all schools.
it really does capture the challenge of governing a diverse country like Malaysia, doesn't it? When a top-level decree clashes with specific community practices within a coalition, something has to give.
Or at least finding a balance is incredibly tough without facing backlash from somewhere. It forces you to ask, can that kind of moral clarity and cultural pragmatism really coexist easily in policy?
It seems like a constant tension, trying to balance principle, the PM's word, cabinet consensus, and the political reality of different communities.
Exactly. It highlights that governing isn't just about making rules, it's about navigating these really deep cultural and political sensitivities. The government is walking a very fine line here.
A situation worth watching, definitely. The fallout from this decision and Akmal's reaction will likely continue to ripple through the political landscape. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.